Hi, everybody. Welcome to Tim's Vinyl Confessions. I'm Tim Derling, and I'm so excited to bring you this episode. This came together very quickly. Have a returning co-host, Brian Foster from the excellent YouTube channel Y&T Vinyl and Friends. Huge Y&T fan, as I am, and the our very special guest that we're going to introduce is Mr. Darren Drew. And I met Darren because Darren commented on one of my many videos that I posted about one of my favorite bands, Y&T, but I believe I made a post on what would have been the great Leonard Hayes' birthday, and Darren came on and commented that he was Leonard's drum tech starting in the year 2000. So I definitely wanted to see if he would be interested in coming on and talking to us, and he was. And he's also builds makes guitars, so it's all kinds of good rock and roll stuff. So Darren, I want to welcome you. Thank you very much for doing this.
Thank you. My pleasure.
So Darren, let's just get a little background on you. I mean, you said you told me you started teching for Leonard in 2000. Were you a Y&T fan up to that
No,
point? No, no,
no, I wasn't.
no. That's
I've
cool. No,
worked for
that's
many,
totally
Yeah,
cool.
no.
Yeah,
yeah, I've worked for many bands, and it was hard to find a band that I really liked their music, you could say. But I've worked with professionals, so when it's played so well, you can't help but to enjoy it.
yeah, yeah. I mean, and some people might be shocked to hear that, but it's a job, right? You don't have
Right.
to. You can like the people you work with, and it's like I've talked to cover designers. You don't have to like every band you work with. Or you don't have,
Absolutely.
you like their music, but it's a job. So tell me, like, what is your background? When did you start, teching, and then lead us up to how you ended up working for the great Leonard Hayes.
Well, I went to sound school, and then 9-month program, and then I started doing live sound for bands and clubs, and then I got an application for stagehand at Shoreline, right? And um, and so they gave me the job, and so I just started using that for some field work. But then a friend of ours wanted to get Leonard Hayes into working with Bill Graham Presents also. So I got introduced to him, and then come to find out I had to pick him up and take him to work every day because he was like on my way. And so that's how I met Leonard, was just him and I going back and forth to work every day together, no matter where the venue was. And then he just we got to know each other, pretty well with that many hours spent. And he seen that I could fix anything. So that's why he hired me to do his drums. And I was never a drummer or a tech before for anybody, but he just knew he had faith in me. So, I
So
started being his tech.
so just to fill in,
Yeah.
when you say Shoreline, I assume you mean the Shoreline Amphitheater.
Yeah. In
Yeah,
Mountain View. Yeah.
yeah. So would I be correct in assuming that you're from the Bay Area, or you were at least living there at the time?
Yeah. I was living like, Redwood City or Union City, pretty much, when I met Leonard, and he lived in Hayward. So
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
like on the way to San Francisco or Oakland Arena or wherever.
So this is interesting to me because you started working with Leonard as his tech in the year 2000.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he wasn't back in Y&T just yet. I think that
Right.
was like 2003 or so when
2001, actually.
2001. Okay.
Yeah.
This is great. Get these dates cleared up.
Correct.
But Leonard left Y&T originally back in 1986, and he was
Right.
replaced by Jimmy DeGrasso. So by 2001, so you'd been working with him for about a year, and
Yeah, maybe not quite a year, but yeah,
so did he just
doing
come? Did he just come to you and say, "Hey, look, I'm going to be back with the Y&T guys again"?
well, like I said, we became friends, and and he supposedly with Y&T, he already had drum techs and stuff from, Scott Bourret actually was their manager, and so
Yep.
Yep.
he had his own team, you could say, and but by the time he got back together with Y&T, and I went over there with to Dave's house, the very first meeting Leonard had with him, and to get back together, and start playing. And so the first couple of gigs I didn't do with Y&T because of management, but then Leonard was always like, no, if my guy was here, that wouldn't have happened. And finally to shut Leonard up, they kind of, gave me the job so that I could keep him happy, you could say, you know.
Yeah. Well, I know that also around that time, they decided that Scott would not be managing and that Jill Meniketti would be taking
Right.
over.
Yeah, that was about 6 months after I started working with them, when Jill started taking over, managing them and booking their shows and whatnot.
Yeah. And if
Yeah.
I understand correctly, once she kind of took the reins of Y&T, their touring schedule got a lot busier.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. But they were just coming back anyway in a sense. But no, Jill was really good. She was getting them a lot of gigs, especially in Europe and whatnot, because they were real popular in Europe for years
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
years. So
Hey,
Yeah, I know
Darren.
they did. Yeah, go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, no, just can you give us kind of a sense of, how Leonard felt, coming back to Y&T at that time?
well, he was always playing in local clubs and whatnot, so he was excited to get back with them as long as it was going to be fun. Because see, early, back in the olden days, it got to where it wasn't fun anymore, and so it just and if you're not having fun with music, there's no point of it. Then
All right.
so he said as long as it's going to be fun, then by all means he would start playing with them again. So yeah,
Darren, I have another question about as far as the lineup of Y&T because I know that there was a brief period where Steph Burns was still the
Yeah.
second guitar player in Y&T
Yep.
before they got John Nyman. Was Steph with the band when you first started working, like with
yeah,
Leonard
he
in
was.
Y&T?
Yeah, Steph was there. But he was also going out with Huey Lewis at the time too.
Yeah.
So he did a few, 3 or 4 shows probably with Y&T, and then then Huey Lewis started going back out on tours. So he
Yeah.
was more obligated to that, you could say.
And
So
as my understanding is that he also ended up working with a guy named Vasco Rossi, who was a big rock
oh
star
yeah,
in I think Italy and Europe. So that's
right,
kind of what took Steph away. But I mean, and as we know, John Nyman, who I've had the pleasure of interviewing, John has been part of the Y&T orbit since forever, since like the at least the early to mid '80s. He went on
right.
tour with them singing background vocals. So was that a pretty natural transition? I mean, it's not like they hired a complete unknown and had to get to know them.
Right. No, it was John Nyman's dream to always be a part of Y&T and stuff. Plus, he knew all the material. He was the robot for Y&T back when that
Oh
robot
yeah,
came out.
yeah.
You know, um, and so yeah, he had been a big part of them earlier in their career and stuff. So, but they went through interviewing different guitar players for the part. And Leonard was like, get John Nyman. And so they finally did. And John Nyman, he's the nicest guy in the world. And so he's like in his happy place playing with Y&T now for all these years.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, but he's been there ever since. Do you know, like, were you privy to anything? Was there ever any discussion of getting Joey Alves back and getting the original foursome?
Joey didn't want to do that. He played a few shows, he played a few songs here and there with them throughout the years, but yeah, his health wasn't allowing him to do so. So,
Yeah,
Right.
that's
That
yeah,
that New Year's Eve show, right? Was that 2005?
is that where they
oh,
had
That
everybody like
that
Jimmy
was
and
the last
Steph
time they
and
all played
yeah.
together?
at the Avalon. No, actually,
Yes.
Leonard and Joey played at the Fillmore with Y&T. I'm not sure what year, just 5, 6 years ago or 7 years ago, whatever. But Joey, and that was the last time that Joey and Leonard played with Y&T was at the Fillmore in San Francisco.
Okay.
But I remember that New Year's Eve show.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that must have
So,
been amazing. Yeah.
oh, love to have
Yeah, it
seen
was.
that.
That was at the Mystic, I think, in Petaluma.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
that
the,
was
the
a busy days and stuff, but it
hmm.
was good and fun. That
like
was like one
yeah,
of my favorite places.
the Mystic is like a yearly
Yeah.
pilgrimage place for
That's like the
wines.
Mecca for
Yeah,
Y&T fans.
that's their Cobo
Yeah,
Hall or their
Yep.
Madison Square Garden or you name it. There,
right.
Absolutely.
That was my favorite place once a year to go to. Actually, was the Mystic, just because it was such a cool vibe there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Darren, just curious. There was, obviously, a bunch of stories back in the day, like the early '80s when, Y&T toured with Ozzy in Europe and
Yeah.
AC/DC in Europe. With Leonard Hayes, just the partying and stuff. I just wondered if there's any stories that he shared with you about those times.
Yeah, I heard a lot of stories with him and I driving back and forth to work for so many years. Yeah, but most of those. Here's a funny story. Okay, Penthouse or Hustler went to Motley Crue and said, "What really happens out on the road?" They said, "You should ask Leonard Hayes." Right, and so they did an interview with Leonard Hayes, and they wouldn't print any of his stories. So
Hustler wouldn't print
I'll
any
just
of
leave
his
it at that.
stories.
Yeah, they wouldn't print any of them. He's like, "Who am I talking to, Playboy or what?"
Wow.
Yeah.
But I'll just leave it at that.
Wow.
Yeah. So
Um, okay, that's awesome. So let let's talk about, I mean, as drum tech for Leonard, I mean, you've seen him play a countless times, and obviously as fans, we all know, the thing that Leonard was most known for was that amazing fast right foot. I mean,
Underfoot.
right.
yeah, what was it like watching Leonard in action? Like, when was the first time you saw him play and go, "Wow, like this guy is amazing"?
It was like the more shows I did with him, the more amazing he became, you could say, in my eyes. Um, some nights, I mean, and he would start rehearsing really well, a lot more. I mean, but he was just, some nights he was on fire, and I mean, just couldn't help but to sit there and be in awe. You know what I mean? And I was most of the time sitting down, you know, on the side of his drum riser. So I mean, that's what I did look at with his caps, or I mean, a lot of times, and it's really they were muscular, but he had his own style about him to make that pedal fast, and nobody else could do what he did with it. It was it was also an honor to work for such a guy that every other drummer in the world just had super respect for. Um, so yeah, it was pretty cool though.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, because as Brian and I have talked about many times, Y&T is a group that we always thought should have been a much bigger band than they were, and
Huge.
should have had songs
Yeah,
all over classic rock radio that we're all sick of because they were so good. And
right,
and musicians, people in the business knew how great they were. And
Yep.
Leonard
right.
Hayes is one of those guys. You'd find drummers that would kind of almost speak his name in hushed tones. Oh yeah, Leonard Hayes. Yeah, like he's the guy. Um, I know that I know Nico McBrain from Iron Maiden talked about what a great drummer he was. I've heard Paul Bostaff, who used to be in Slayer, talk about him. But
Oh
I
yeah.
mean, in the course of the time working with him, like, did you ever meet any drummers that were just like awestruck to meet Leonard? That were like huge rock stars in their own right.
Jason Bonham for one. Um,
Wow.
Wow.
I watched. It was Leonard, Jason in the dressing room, and Jason was talking to him for a couple hours, and yeah, Leonard was his hero. You could say, but then like Mickey D from Motorhead, same thing.
Scorpions.
Yeah,
Yep.
Scorp.
Mike
Yeah.
from Ozzy, same thing. They were all had a, looked up to Leonard. You could say, with so much respect and admiration. And so it was like that's why it was such an honor for me to work with like a drum god guy. In a way.
Jason
Not to
Bonham, I
mention,
mean, here, like, freaking out over
Yeah.
meeting Leonard Hayes. He's John Bonham's son, for crying out loud. Like, that says,
right,
but you know something? John Bonham, I'm guessing, must have been an influence on Leonard because he could do some fast stuff with one pedal too. He
Yep.
did double bass stuff, but he could do some fast stuff with one pedal, really tricky stuff.
right. But they kind of grew up in a different time era, where Leonard was older than he was, and stuff. So, but Leonard did admire some, well, not newer bands that came out, but you know, you know, younger drummers than him that were starting out. He never did mention anything about Jason. I was kind of shocked when I went in the dressing room and he was in there talking with Leonard. Just what he was saying to Leonard and whatnot. Um,
Yep.
and you know, so yeah, it's kind of different
Well,
seeing and McD too. Or
yeah.
from Motorhead. I mean, they were just in there having fun and just talking about all kinds of things. But you know, I heard every show, and I don't care where it was, that people started playing drums because of Leonard, or Leonard they tried to play like Leonard, or they Leonard was their hero. I heard that every single show, no matter if it was a bar or a festival, from
Wow.
somebody. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
that John Bonham Mad Hatter album was like what, 84?
the Bonham
I'm not
album,
sure, but
Yeah, the Mad Hatter.
that was
The
like '92, I think. That was their second album, right?
Was
Because the
it that
first,
late?
Yeah, the first one came out in '89, Disregarded Timekeeping. He
Okay,
was
Yeah,
that's
back in
why.
I don't
'84.
know about that.
He was in what was that band called? Air Race, and then he was in Virginia Wolf during the '80s.
Okay, yeah,
Mm. Yeah, I he was out with Foreigner when headlining a festival when I had met him.
That's right. Yeah, yeah. He was
yeah.
with them too for a time.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna guess that a lot of Leonard's. I'm sure he had like rock influence, but was he? Did he like any jazz drummers? Because I hear a lot of swing in his playing.
yeah. You're right. He does have some swing type stuff in it. You know, he's like Buddy Rich. If
Of
that's
course.
probably the closest thing to anything like that. That he'd ever mentioned to me. But Buddy Rich, he was. I mean,
Oh,
his name says it
amazing.
all.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. So and then later in Leonard's life, after he was back again out of YNT, he started trying to play like him, actually, with the right hand or the left hand holding the stick sideways, um,
Okay. The traditional
just,
grip.
just
Yeah.
Yeah.
practicing around with it. He never did play that way because he hit way too hard for it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. There's a certain amount of subtlety that you need for jazz, but
right, yeah, he was just always too hard of a hitter.
yeah. Now, so having said that, did was Leonard a drummer that? Okay, well, real quick story. I'll back up just a little bit. This is just nothing really to do with anything, but I mean, we're going back about 30 years. I used to have a drum set, and I had a bunch of buddies, and we had a little band. We're together for a few months. I think we played one gig on a free open mic night. But I remember us being practicing in my bedroom, and I would try to whatever song we were doing. I would try to do the triplets
Right.
with the single bass drum, and I simply could not do it. And I was doing something like the rest of the guys weren't playing, but I was just kind of trying to like try to do it real fast. And buddy of mine said, Tim, man. I said, yeah. I said, what are you doing? It sounded so bad.
Yeah.
But like I can only imagine, did Leonard like go through sticks and pedals and snare heads like crazy, or was
Yeah.
like what was
Yeah.
that like?
And if you ask Leonard how he did those triplets, he would say, I don't know. It came natural to him. He started out with when he was in the Mustangs in high school with two kick drums, but it was too much stuff for him to move around. So he figured out a way to do it with one kick drum and one pedal. But yeah, he went through on the show day, he would go through two sets of marching band sticks, which were like the second biggest sticks you can get. He would go through two sets of those a show and one snare head a show.
Wow.
I mean,
Yeah.
in every show,
Yeah.
So
Did he ever bust like a bass drum head during a
no,
show or no?
never,
No.
It's
no.
yeah, I'm just in awe. And when I say that Leonard played with a swing, I'm thinking just as something specific in case people are wondering what I mean. If you think of the beginning of Black Tiger, I mean that's a heavy metal riff if there ever was. Dun, 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 dun,
Right,
dun. But at the beginning you can hear
Yep.
and
right.
it's got
Yeah.
this
Very
jazzy
jazz.
swing thing, and it's like
Yep.
you wouldn't think it would work, but you'd miss it when you hear the live performances. It's not there, or like especially when you heard like like other drummers play his parts. And because every drummer is has their own unique thing, and it's funny because I can understand not wanting to lug the two bass drums around, but I mean years later they figured out a way to have set of
Two pedals.
pedals with one bass, but Leonard he went a step further. No, one drum, one pedal.
Well, it didn't sound the same with two pedals,
It's
as the
not the
way he
same
made it.
attack. You're right. Yeah.
It doesn't even sound closely to the same, and he didn't like a double pedal sound, you know. So,
There's
he
a
never
definite
did.
difference for sure. And I've had,
Yeah.
I've had people like that are, very, very knowledgeable in all things rock and older than I am that I've had to tell them, no, he did not play a double
Single.
bass kit.
Yeah.
Right.
Single bass drum, single bass pedal. I said, now go back and listen to some of that stuff with that in mind. I mean,
Yep.
from the beginning, I mean, from the
Right.
very first Yesterday and Today album, it's stuff like Game Playing Woman and like it's just amazing the stuff that he could do.
Yeah.
Hence
And
says that nickname Thunderfoot.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
He didn't hit that hard, but he did it fast and in time. I have a really funny story about his single kick drum. It was Motorhead and Festival in Europe, and so we did our show. We're coming up, and we used to take like his hi-hat, his snare, and his kick pedal, out on tour with us. And so when I get back to say Jan, they roll his drum riser around the back of the curtain. And so by the time I get back there, there's a guy standing there, like looking down by the pedal area, and it's like, dude, get off my riser. And I didn't know who he was at all, but I knew he shouldn't have been there, for one. And I was in a hurry to hurry up and pack our stuff because of scheduling. And so he's like, I got to see the trick. I got to see the trick. And so it's like, dude, what are you talking about? And I was lost at the moment, It's like I don't know what you're talking about. And so it's like I got to see the trick. I got to see the trick. There has to be a trick. And so by the third time I'm asking him, and I'm removing him kind of from my drum riser, you could say I was assisting him, yeah. And so he's like, I got to see the trick. I said, it dawns on me, there is no trick. There's one foot, one pedal, and one drum. There is no trick. As I'm helping him off the drum riser. So then I go in, I get everything packed up. I go into our dressing room, and guess who's standing in the door? Same guy. And so Leonard introduces me to him, and it's like, we've already met. Right. I mean, it's like, what else am I going to say? And it was Motorhead's tour manager,
Oh,
because he was a big Leonard Hayes fan,
yeah,
but he knew it had to be a trick because he knew that a foot couldn't be that fast.
yeah.
And if you ever
Well,
seen Mickey D play, he's really fast everywhere. But yeah, he was such a big Leonard. He had to see the trick, but it's like there is no trick.
yeah, yeah. It was just natural talent,
Yeah, but
and
come to find out, throwing Motorhead's tour manager off of my drum riser, that was kind of funny. How came to be, it's like silly me.
it's there is something to that when there's something very real about that when someone's like, oh yeah, I'm a tour manager for Motorhead. At that point, he wasn't. He was just a huge fan of Leonard Hayes. You
Right,
know what I mean?
exactly.
And you forget you remember why it was that you got in the business in the first place.
Right, because of Leonard. He was a drummer also, but yeah, Leonard was his big hero, and yeah, so but he was really nice. I met him many times after that, throughout the years, but really a nice guy, Adam Pearson, I think his name was, yeah. But really nice guy, but he was a big Leonard fan. He knew that there was a trick, but there wasn't, never was.
So, Darren, when you were the time that you were with Leonard, there wasn't a lot of new Y&T music coming out, but I did notice your name is mentioned inside of both of these CDs, Unearthed Volume 1 and Volume
Yeah.
2. And I know that like a lot of those were basically older songs, but were you in the studio with them when they were retouching any of those songs, or was that
No,
just no?
I was just well, by that time I was like their stage manager guy too, drum tech and then stage manager, in charge of guitar techs and everything on stage before and after during the show. So, that's why my name's on there. Yeah, and the whole band fell in love with me because I worked so hard and I took care of everybody, not just Leonard. Um, Made sure everything hopefully would be smooth and just take care of all their needs. So that's why my name is on those two. It's on a couple other ones too, but ones that they redid or whatever. But yeah,
Yeah.
Which other ones?
when they redid Mean Streak, I think, and
Oh, the
Okay,
reissues.
the reissues.
reissues, yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep.
yeah, and another one too, I think. But that was nice of Dave to put them on. But they always listed their crew before anyway on their CDs and
Oh
stuff.
yeah. Oh yeah.
You
They
know,
always they
so
always gave shout out to either Mickey Rush or any of the and some of those guys, like Adam Day, like they went
Adam
on to
Day.
be some I think one of the guys went on to work with Van Halen. Like so I mean it was a
Well, yeah, and Adam Day was working with Slash for years.
yeah,
Leonard said that he was the best tech in the world. You know, I've
yeah.
met him a couple of times too, and so I said that to him. No, Leonard says you're the best tech in the world. He's like, kind of bashful about it, but that was Leonard's attitude or opinion, and Leonard was so musically genius guy. He knew any and everything about every aspect of every instrument. You could even say, he was purely a genius. So if he said that, it was true, at least in Leonard's mind. But
And yeah, I mean Leonard factored in, I would say, heavily on the arrangements of those Y&T songs.
oh yeah,
And so yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense.
Hey,
So
Darren.
yeah, go ahead,
yeah.
Brian.
Yeah, just curious as to what led to I think it was 2006 when
I was just going to ask that.
yeah, Leonard left the band. Just from your perspective, what kind of led to that?
Um, yeah, I really don't want to get into the band aspect of it because it's like not my place, or I don't want to put blame on anybody or anything. It just stopped being fun. I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
It just stopped being fun again. So, and if Leonard said when he first got back together, when as long as it's fun, well, the fun started going away. You know,
Yeah.
Okay.
so
Yeah,
I
fair
I
enough.
I can still remember like back then I was a very active member commenting on their fan forum, and I can still remember I'd get on and log in and say, "Oh, what's new?" and then I read the announcement and I was, "Oh, that sucks." Like, as if we just got him back. Um,
right.
but um, but I do remember seeing, I mean, what a trooper this guy was. I remember seeing him, playing with oxygen. Like man, Leonard was just a lifer. Like that's all he wanted to do, right? Is play drums.
Yeah, it was in his blood. For one, with YNT, he's like, it's coming. He would mention to me once in a while, it's coming. Of him not being here anymore. But
Yeah,
yeah, but Leonard, it was in his blood from such an early age. And he 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 would tell me one time, it's like I can't play up to my normal ability to play, when he was on oxygen and stuff. And so it's like he didn't want to go out and embarrass himself, but he couldn't help but to go out and play. He just loved it so much,
yeah,
and he played up until he passed away, so
yeah.
it
Yeah.
was a part of him.
Yeah. Can you just after 2016, you just talk about like those haze experiences that he would put on?
Well, yeah, okay, Johnny Gunny, Eddie Money's guitar player, for years, they've been friends since high school and stuff too. And so they got together a band and wrote some. We made a CD and I did the engineering part on it and helped record it all and stuff. And just and it was funny because so with the Hayes experience and so, but Leonard laid down. We found the best sounding room in the whole house instead of the studio alone at Johnny's at Gun Productions. So it was he was way down in the den, you could say. And so we had giant screen TV so we could see each other. And Leonard laid out all of the tracks for all of the songs, and that was the first thing that we did and he didn't have nothing to listen to, just what was in his head, and he laid down all the tracks for it, which is a difficult thing to do, but he heard it
Yeah.
all in his head. Every instrument part he heard in his head,
Yeah, you
so
have to
he
imagine
did it
music that isn't there yet.
right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah,
And that's what Leonard was doing. And so that first CD, Not Purple, it was all just from Leonard's head, laying down all the drum tracks, first. And so it was kind of unheard of, but that's the way that it came about, and then we started doing guitar and bass and whatever else after that. But Leonard, that's what I'm saying. He was a musical genius, you know.
yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a tremendous understanding of all parts of the songs. It wasn't all about the drum parts. The drum parts served the songs.
Right,
Um,
right.
I know also, like, around the early 90s, Leonard also played with Ian Gillan from Deep Purple.
Yeah.
Did he ever talk about that time or those
Oh
times?
yeah. He loved being out on tour with Ian a lot more than Y&T. They did like 82 countries, you know, when he was out with Ian Gillan. They had a lot more fun, I guess, even, and stuff. But yeah, Ian took Leonard to so many different more places, I mean, Y&T did many different countries or whatnot, but not 82, you know.
Well, Deep Purple were worldwide
Yeah.
known too.
Right. And Ian Gillan, he would play in every little crummy nothing of a bar worldwide just so that those people could see him, even if there was 10 people there, but
Yeah.
he wanted everybody to listen to him and stuff. So, and they were the first band to play in Russia when the Iron Curtain fell, the Ian Gillan band,
Oh,
Toolbox was the name, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
Leonard loved that band,
Yeah, that doesn't get a lot of mention
no.
because a lot of times people will say, well, Scorpions were the first to play there, or the big the concert
Yeah,
that
the whole Motley Crue Bon Jovi thing. Yeah.
the Make a Different Drink Foundation, as they
Yep.
called it later.
right.
But um, so Darren, you had mentioned that you weren't a Y&T fan uh, coming into working with Leonard, but as you got to work with him, from watching the band on stage so many times, what were some of your favorite songs particularly if you look at it from like a drum performance, what were the songs that you kind of look
Well,
forward to watching and
I
hearing?
like Midnight in Tokyo,
Yeah.
and I Believe in You was another, I think, fantastic song, just and the more shows I did with them, the bigger the fan I became, you know. They never ceased to amaze me, especially Dave out there doing guitar stuff. It was like he never ceased to amaze me. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and Leonard I got used to, and he pretty much did the same thing, but it was more predictable, you could say, in my eyes. But I was right next to him. But yeah, the whole band would do some stuff some nights that would just blow your mind, and their live
Yeah.
shows were so much better than their LPs. You
Yeah,
know,
that's a
True. Yeah.
common that's a common across the board feeling. And somebody that I mean, I live in Eastern Canada. I never got to see Y&T in any incarnation. I'm like, well, they must be really good live because I think the records are pretty good too. But yeah, the
Yeah.
live albums they come alive. Like listen to Open Fire or any of that live stuff.
Just
Um,
curious, Darren, if Leonard ever talked about like the song Ballroom Boogie when they played that live.
that was a Ian Pace groove that he switched his kick pedal and his snare around from Ian Pace, and so
I bet I
that
know what
that
I think I know what one it was.
so that was the groove for that. That was a good song, and I mean, he was hauling ass on his foot with that in that song, but
Yeah.
it was just turned. He turned it around. He used to do that when he stole it from anybody. Would just turn around, the kick to the snare, and then vice versa, whatever. You know, um, just to make it sound totally different.
I can hear the song You Fool No One from the Burn album. It sounds like a similar beat, but it sounds like Leonard took it and made it into a shuffle because the Deep Purple song isn't a shuffle,
Yeah.
but with the
Right.
cowbell and the yeah, that's really cool. I mean, of course, play in that case, if Ian Pace was an influence, and it wouldn't surprise me if he was, it really must have been a thrill playing Deep Purple songs with Ian Gillan.
Oh
Oh yeah,
yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah, I wish I was around that those days, but I wasn't. I you know was in the 2000 era, but it was still a lot of fun, and everybody at work wanted my job working for Bill Graham, but Leonard wasn't going to have anything to do with that. So but it was a lot of work, but it was a lot of fun too when you're working with a band that's your best friend. I mean, it's a lot it's a lot better and more enjoyable than a band, Stevie Wonder that's you don't know anybody, and then it really becomes work, and there's no fun involved in it. You could say it's really cool to work for them, but you don't have that camaraderie, or
Yeah,
the fun that you have, with when your friends playing, or
yeah.
Yeah.
my boss asked me once, "What's the craziest thing I've seen in Europe?" And it was, 30,000 people cheering for Leonard, my best friend, and guy I give nothing but crap to, but and I mean the place would be just 30,000 people, and the biggest cheer out of the whole band was for Leonard every show, and I
That's
mean that was
awesome.
like really cool to see,
Yeah.
just
Just yeah,
from
kind of
my
curious,
past
Darren, like,
stuff.
your time with Y&T and on tour with them, like what was different about these shows in the Bay Area versus anywhere else?
Nothing, I would say, man. They
No.
all gave it all of their heart and did the best performance they could do that night, every show, no matter where it was. Look,
Any
watching
difference in the
30,000.
crowd?
Well, the crowd makes a big difference, but the setup in, you say, Europe with all the festivals and stuff, it was a lot harder because it was all rental drum kit stuff. And I mean, good luck with that. I mean, just it's you know
Because it costs so
that
much to cart your actual gear into Europe,
right.
right? So you use
Yeah,
rental
it was
stuff.
all rental, even like the guitar amps and stuff like that. We took
Yeah.
our own guitars and stuff, but yeah, Leonard's kit. They got some shows in New York, and Leonard and I drove all the gear down there. Just so he could play his own kit.
Yeah.
It was dependable that way. He knew it. I knew it, and it was just much easier to set it up and everything with his own kit. But go to Europe and nothing is right, and hopefully you can get it to last an hour, half an hour, hour and a half, and with gap tape and whatever, Um, but yeah, they always gave it all their all every show, no matter if it was a little place or big place. But it was cool watching that many people rooting for your friend or screaming for him. And
Oh,
then
Yeah.
I met a
Well,
lot of big musicians over in Europe too, so that was an added feature. for
Who
that.
was Darren, who was the most surprising, or I guess you could say, I mean, Jason Bonham's a pretty big name, but was there ever anybody like in a huge band that you would never in a million years expect to be a Y&T fan, but turns out was?
I mean, there's so many. Slash was guitar player. I mean, there was so many guitar players at that caliber, you could say. But I mean, you know, well, Motorhead's drummer Mickey D,
Yeah.
he went later to play with the Scorpions. I mean, how much bigger does it get than that? You know, I
Yeah,
mean, and I mean, really, and then Ozzy's drummer Mike, um, you know, it doesn't get bigger drummers than that worldwide for anybody with anybody. And I mean,
right.
the list goes on and on of those type of players I met. One time, Mike was watching Leonard play at the Warfield up in San Francisco. He was just warming up or something or whatever. But he's watching him. It's like, oh, so you're trying to steal some licks? And Mike goes to me, no, you know what? What Leonard does, nobody can steal. And I've always been down here, and Leonard's like always been up here. And that was
Wow.
Ozzy's drummer saying that. So,
Yeah. Is that
so
Mike
I mean,
is that Mike Borden?
yeah,
So he
Yeah.
was in Faith No More. He's a good drummer. Like
right,
he's a really
absolutely,
good
he is.
drummer. And
Yeah,
that makes sense because they I think they're from the Bay Area originally, or
right.
he was anyway.
Yeah, Mike is too. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, but for him to say something like that, and you mentioned some other drummer's name earlier from Testament or whatever. But
Oh, Paul Bostaff.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah, I mean, well, yeah, he was thrilled to meet Leonard, like I would say, but I mean, the list just goes on and on of players like that, but Jason Bonham is probably the biggest name, you know.
Right.
Yeah. Uh, I mean, the name
Yeah,
Bonham
I
just
don't think it
means,
gets any bigger than that, though.
yeah,
Really. So,
for rock
Nope,
drummers.
not at all.
right. Or
Hey,
So
any
Darren,
type of drummer.
sorry. Just curious, Y&T, they put out their documentary a few years ago on with the show. Tim and I are, on the stead that that's one of the best rock documentaries that's ever been out there. And Leonard got to, participate in that. I was just wondering if he ever talked to you about that and how he felt, being able to participate in that.
You know, not really. Some of the things Leonard never talked to me about was that he didn't really. He went and did it because he was asked to. You know, since they fired him the second time, he wasn't as best of friends with them, you could say. So you know, he didn't really want to talk about stuff like that too much, you could say. But yeah, I haven't even seen the documentary myself
it's
either.
really good and
Yeah.
really thorough. And Leonard comes off knowing, like, and that doesn't surprise me, the second time around. He wouldn't
Right.
exactly be on their, best friends list, but he was totally classy during it, and you would never know that, there was really
No.
any bad blood. But it's an extraordinarily well done documentary. My only regret about that is I can remember they first announced that in 2015 to take pre-orders for it. It didn't come out for 4 years, and unfortunately, in that time, we lost
Oh,
Leonard and we lost Joey.
Right.
Yeah. What about
Yeah.
when? I mean, he wasn't with them anymore, but do you remember him talking to you about when Phil Kennemore passed in 2011?
Um, you know, it saddened him. He did a couple shows and did a tribute for Phil. You know, um, a minute of silence, even at one show. For Phil. You know, love and hate. I mean, that happens with any band, any players. Where they love each other, they hate each other. But obviously, Leonard loved all of those guys. You can't make that much music without loving them,
yeah.
and stuff.
Yeah.
And even Dave's admitted, oh, it's been a love hate relationship, and it is. You're cooped up with only those people for years and years, you could say. Um,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's being on the road's difficult, or I can imagine all the rehearsal time that I never even seen really, of them to create all those songs and stuff. It takes its toll on friendships.
Oh yeah.
When Leonard and I drove to New York, it was like I just wondered if that was going to take a toll on our friendship, but it actually made us better friends. So,
Yeah.
that was a good thing.
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
you get to know everybody's good sides and bad sides and everybody's
Absolutely.
idiosyncrasies. And I've heard people say if he leaves the cap off the toothpaste one more time, I swear to God, like
right, right.
that sort of thing. And I remember Phil Kennemore had a really unique quote. And it wasn't about Leonard, but somebody was asking him about the Metallica Some Kind of Monster documentary, which was a real warts and all, look at them practically almost deteriorating. And they asked Phil about, about that, and would Y&T ever consider it? He said no. He said, but I will tell you that every band goes through this stuff, just not every band films it. It's
Right.
just the way it is. So
Exactly.
yeah.
You know,
So
recording Leonard and I got into it recording that CD. I mean, but at the end of the day, we were best friends again. I mean, it's just is part of the nature of the beast.
yeah.
You know,
Well, I mean, because it's worth fighting over. It's the product of your heart and soul. You want it to be the very best, and you want everybody working on it to do their very best. Or
right?
so 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 how did you? I mean, obviously you're adept with various instruments, Darren. How did you go from being I mean, when you weren't Leonard's drum tech anymore, you build guitars now, right?
Yeah, but I built guitars before I even actually or about maybe the time I met Leonard, I was building guitars already. And
Okay.
that came about. I was buying and selling a lot of guitars, but they didn't have the right tone, or they were stupid to work on because they weren't designed very well, or they just weren't comfortable. And my girlfriend kept saying, "Build your own, build your own." So I started building my own from scratch. And one thing led to another. I made like 25 guitars now out of my home in my garage. I've been working full time or not even. You know, but I've always been like a wood guy. So I kind of know how to work with wood. My father taught me when I was kind of young, but and so I use the most beautiful wood ever because I love wood. And but it was just to find a guitar that I liked that was smartly designed, as I put it. And just one thing led to another. I started building more and more, and you know, I'm building another new one now. But I just built one for this other guy that a friend of Leonard's from way back when. You know, yeah, and it's like really cool to be able to make an instrument, but to make one that stands up with the best of the best Gibsons or Fenders or whatever. I mean, that's really makes it extra cool. But yeah, just my own design, my own thinking process behind the construction or whatever. You know, I don't know. It's therapy for me. Keeps me sane. If you
Okay.
know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I'm just
Nice.
you're in your own world, being very creative and very artistic, and it just soothes the mind and soul. So
Just
yeah.
yeah, curious. Anyone that we would know that's playing those guitars today?
I built one for Rich Eckhart, Toby Keithley, guitar player. He
Okay.
has one. He's never taken it out on tour because he said it's the coolest guitar he owns, but he doesn't want anything to happen to it out on the road. You know, there was another country boy, Waylon Jennings, but I think it was him. His old lead guitar player has one of my guitars, which and he's got a whole closet full of like Telecasters or
Oh yeah.
whatever that are custom, and the best you could get at that time or whatnot. And yeah, but he was impressed with it. So, those are like the two biggest ones.
That's very cool.
Yeah,
So I mean, it's one thing to have an aptitude in working with wood, but you also have to have an aptitude for electronics and
sound.
magnets and sound and acoustics. So like just you do all of that. Like do you build the
Well,
pickups and the whole thing or
yeah, no, I don't build the hardware or the pickups. But in building a guitar, it's like I understand the mechanics behind it. Because I was working on guitars way before I met Leonard, even because they were made out of wood. But I like the ones that were like broken beyond repair. You could say if it was wood, I could fix it better than it came new. So that's how I kind of got into guitar, working on guitars. But and it just turned one thing into another, and then all these people at the studios or at work needed guitar repair, so I started repairing guitars. And one thing led to another. Then I started building them, and then I worked for this import company for like 12 years. I had over 10,000 instruments go through my hands. Setting them up, um, mandolins, banjos, and stuff. So it's like I've gotten a lot of experience with instruments, and but building them is still the favorite, out of everything really. But it's I'm retired now, but I still build guitars.
yeah. So I was going to say, tell us about your YouTube channel. I mean, you show a lot of that work off there.
Yeah, when I was working for that import company, I had tons of freedom there. So I would just sit hook my phone up, and then as I'm doing like a fret job or leveling the frets or building from at home, I would just start making videos. And yeah, I have like over 100 videos, on YouTube about everything pretty much about a guitar, from building it from start to finish to, frets to, I mean, everything, I just thought, why not? I like teaching people things, uh, of the knowledge it's taken me 20 years to learn or whatever. So it's like, why not do that and help people if I can, So that's why I started doing it, just because I had the time and the place, and, just I could teach people that I didn't even know or I've never met or whatever, worldwide even. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
No,
that's awesome.
it's just fascinating to look at, like especially like an electric guitar, and you go, yeah, well, that was a tree once.
Right.
uh,
Yeah. I've made all of my guitars out of just raw board, you
yeah,
know. Yeah. I mean,
amazing.
what's the fun in buying a kit or whatever, Plus they don't use the nice wood I use, but yeah, it's like if you're gonna make one, make it by hand and make it, from a raw board, and have it come out of a really nice guitar. It's like, I don't know. It's an enjoyment to be able to do that, so yeah.
Well, Darren, this has been a fantastic chat. I mean, as a Y&T fan, I feel like we've gotten sort of an insider's look. I mean, on what goes on, and
Absolutely.
especially a guy like Leonard, who always seemed to me like he would just be a riot to be around. And from everything I've heard, uh, you know, uh,
Yeah.
when Motley Crue, probably at the height of their, dare I say, decadence,
Defers to.
defers to Leonard Hayes, that says a lot.
Right.
Wow. Oh, that's awesome. Brian,
I
can you
got, I
think
got
of
to,
anything else you could to
I,
ask
I
Darren?
got to say this, working with YNT was a privilege and an honor, but being best friends with Leonard had my back no matter what. you know, especially out on gigs. His philosophy was we only have each other. We have to take care of each other, because that's all that we have when you're out on the road. But he he was a genius about everything, actually. But he had my back. He believed in me more than anybody ever has, and stuff. And so it was like we were really tight, and it was good to get to know him personally instead of like whatever everybody else just knows him from being after a show or whatnot, But he was hilarious. He was funny, man. The stuff he would come up with or whatever, tell stories. He had the best stories ever, and he made you wonder if they were true or not. And then later you would see that they were.
Yeah,
But he was hilarious. He had great humor, and
yeah.
I had good humor too. So we used to just mess with each other and have tons of fun with each other. But yeah, he was a joy to be around, and then occasionally he was like an asshole to be around. But like I said, at the end of the day, we were still best friends, and it was all good. But he was that way with everybody because of his passion for
Yeah.
Yeah.
whatever he was discussing. But he was hilarious, and he was a lot of fun. You know,
Yeah,
he made
yeah,
fun
no,
out of
Darren, if you
everything.
could just, sum up just, very briefly, just, what kind of drummer was Leonard Hayes?
He was a passionate one that took it played from his heart, and he didn't care what anybody thought about him. He did whatever he wanted his way, and um, and that's just what he did, and that's how he was. He wasn't out there performing for anybody. He was out there playing for himself, and everybody had to enjoy it because he put his heart into it, his heart and soul into it, so, and, a lot of musicians go through the motions, not Leonard. He wanted to play the best he could play every single show. And if he didn't play well that night, he was down on himself about it, but,
Yeah.
it's like critics, you can't listen to the good or the bad. So, he had so many good morals in life, even, and just it was surprising for such a guy like how he used to party, but his thought process and morals were just incredible. I always say Leonard Hayes for president. You know,
Wow.
just- he was
Hey,
smart about
amen.
so many different things, man. And plus, he wouldn't take crap, and he knew how to get business taken care of. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
but yeah, he was a lot of fun as a friend, and and as a boss, you could say. But he never treated me like he was my boss. You
Right.
know,
No,
so
that's
Well, I mean,
awesome.
to have a tech, I mean, when you're out there on the road, I mean, you're dealing with equipment, anything can go wrong at any time, and to have a tech that is right there, can fix stuff,
Oh,
can switch a snare out, can whatever. I mean, that's
absolutely. Somebody that you can depend on, or to, you know, foresee an issue that's going to break and you fix it before it breaks, and nobody sees that you even did that. You know,
right,
Yep.
right.
That's perfect.
that's what it takes to be a good tech, and never to be seen even when you're out in the middle of the stage.
Yep.
Fixing whatever. Right?
Yeah,
I mean,
that,
really. You know,
that
um,
is,
there's ways to do it to where you're not seen, by anybody, and you can do it slick and fast, and but knowing what you're doing, really helps an experience. But I got Leonard's drum kits his own so that it never broke anyway. I even got to the point where all the mic stands were built onto his kit to where I didn't have to worry about the sound company's mic stands coming loose because they
yeah,
always did. But just
Nice.
preparation is everything with everything in life, actually. And prep everything on a stage, make it safe first and foremost, and hopefully nothing breaks all night, and it's a good fun night for everybody. And I get to sit down and finally relax. You know, really, because I mean those are long days for me. So
Yeah.
but I would finally get to sit down and relax when they play if I did my job right. You know,
yeah.
so
Yeah,
Perfect.
I've seen shows where the roadies are on stage and they're unplugging cords and they're plugging cords back in. And then I've seen shows where you think you see somebody for a split second, then they're gone like a, like a magician. So yeah,
right,
that's the secret. That's the difference between someone that just nobody wants to see you. They want to see the band, and you know that. So
right.
you do what needs to be done, and that's it.
Right, yeah, there's methods to do it, being slick, fast, and kneeling down, running, I mean, there's technique to it, but yeah, when a tech does his job right, he's never seen. Even when he's doing guitar changes,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
example, I mean, really. So Alan Kraft he had a guitar change with Dave that I asked him how he did it, and he wouldn't tell anybody, but he did it so slick and fast. Dave didn't even know how he did it, but
Well,
he
Dave
was a
doesn't
good
change
tech.
guitars much either, so
Well, no, Dave doesn't, but once in a while,
yep.
he'll
yeah.
play his Strat or
That's
them
the
big
Yeah,
old
white the
it's
Les
white
Paul.
yeah.
Strat. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Um,
Earthshaker stuff. Yes,
yeah.
actually.
yeah, but
Um,
yeah, it takes experience, to be
yeah.
good at it. You
Alan
know,
Kraft is a name I recognize. I'm pretty sure he worked with Journey as well.
he does. Yeah, he
Yeah,
did.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Alan was very, very good. He goes way back to when lighting even first started coming out on stages. You know, him helping design all that stuff even. But Alan Kraft was very good, and he was working with YNT when I first started working with him. So,
yeah,
um, but yeah, Alan, yeah, incredible, incredible guy on stage.
Now they shared a lot with Journey back then.
Yep.
yeah. The
Well, same
same
management company is why.
management
Yep.
and yeah.
Scott Ray
Um,
managed both companies. Same with Ronnie Montrose and
yep,
Yep.
and Fly Like an Eagle, Steve Miller.
yep,
Um,
yeah,
There you
yep,
go.
yep,
Yep.
yep.
yeah, he managed him also. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Uh, well, Darren, like this has been great. I really appreciate you taking the time out
Incredible.
to tell these fantastic stories about a fantastic guy, a fantastic musician. Um, Brian, I can't think of anything else I'd want to ask Darren. I mean, I'm sure he could
No,
tell us.
I just, I really appreciate the time, Darren. And it's great. Leonard was, huge part of the Y&T story, and just hearing these stories,
yeah,
with that is
absolutely.
incredible. And
It's been my pleasure. I'm honored for you guys to want to talk with me and whatnot. So I feel the same about you guys, and pleasure meeting both of you guys and stuff. So um, yeah, it's
Yeah,
been fun.
yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, it's amazing talking about Leonard.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
like, no disrespect whatsoever to Jimmy DeGrasso or Mike Vanderheel,
No,
um, but you can tell the difference when they're playing the classic songs. It's not
oh
the way
yeah,
it's not it. Leonard had so many unique little. I mean, and that's the sign of any great musician. It's not just learning, say, the notes or learning the patterns. There's a feel that
right,
Leonard had, especially those early, especially the first two albums, the London Records albums. There's if
oh
you
yeah,
you wouldn't never want to put his drum track to a grid because it would be off time, but it's
right,
perfect the way it is. The music breathes and it speeds up when
right.
you want it to, and then it pulls back when you want it to. It's just, I mean, and that's an Ian Pace and John Bonham thing too. These guys
yep,
were not machines. They weren't used to just playing on to a click. These
All
guys just
Right.
feel.
had all feel and a great sense of time, and the whole band feeds off of that. You can
Yep.
hear the difference. So yeah, he was.
Oh yeah.
He's it's
Ye-
Brian and I, we do everything we can to keep that Y&T name out there,
Yes,
and
sir.
and Leonard was such a big part of that. So Darren, thank you for
Yeah.
sharing these stories with us, and
Right
you're
on.
very fortunate to
Yeah.
work
Thank
with.
you very much.
So
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.
So on
Oh,
behalf of Brian from Y&T Vinyl and Friends, I'll have the link posted to his channel. He'll have mine, and we'll both have the link posted to
Yep,
Darren's
absolutely.
channel if you want to watch his videos on building guitars. And thanks everybody for watching this edition of Tim's Vinyl Confessions. Now go put some classic Y&T on and concentrate on that bass pedal. All right.
Absolutely.
We'll see.
right on.
We'll see you all later.